What if I told you that most affairs don't start with a decision, but with a feeling? That the women who betray their marriages don't wake up one day and choose to cross the line, but instead they slip into it, step by step, often without realizing it. Infidelity isn't always about lust or thrill. Sometimes it's about filling an emotional void that no one saw coming. Today, we're breaking down the subtle, dangerous path that leads married women into affairs, so you can recognize the signs before it's too late. The slow path to betrayal. No one plans to ruin their life. No woman wakes up and says, "Today, I'm going to betray my vows." But affairs don't happen in a single moment. They're the result of a slow, unnoticed progression. The reality is, most married women who end up in affairs aren't morally corrupt. They're emotionally starved. And that hunger for connection leads to small boundary violations that snowball into something they never imagined. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that a person's worth is measured by the worth of what they value. When a marriage starts feeling empty, it's easy to seek validation elsewhere. But when you chase fleeting emotions, instead of enduring virtues like loyalty, discipline, and integrity, you risk trading long-term stability for temporary pleasure. True fulfillment doesn't come from external attention. It comes from mastering your desires and strengthening your character. A Stoic knows that emotions, if left unchecked, will drag them into suffering. The moment a person starts justifying small betrayals, sharing intimate details with someone outside the marriage, seeking comfort in places they shouldn't, they step onto a path of self-deception. Affairs don't start in the bedroom, they start in the mind. The key to avoiding this downfall is self-awareness, recognizing when you're emotionally vulnerable and reinforcing the boundaries that protect what truly matters. The difference between those who remain steadfast and those who falter lies in their ability to govern themselves. Epictetus taught that no man is free who is not master of himself. Temptation isn't the problem, attachment to temptation is. The real challenge isn't external, it's internal. It's about choosing wisdom over impulse, long-term fulfillment over fleeting desire, and self-respect over regret. The unspoken void. Most of the time, it's not about escaping a bad marriage. It's about reclaiming something that feels lost. In the early years of a relationship, there's passion, excitement, and a sense of being deeply seen. But as time passes, routines take over, conversations become transactional, and the connection that once felt electric turns dull. Slowly, indifference replaces intimacy, and that's when the cracks start to form. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." The danger isn't just in the fading spark. It's in the stories we start telling ourselves about what that means. Maybe we were never truly in love. Maybe I deserve more. Maybe someone else will make me feel alive again. These thoughts, left unchecked, become the fuel for bad decisions. The mind searches for an escape, not realizing that true fulfillment isn't found in novelty. It's built through discipline, commitment, and the daily effort of choosing love even when it feels ordinary. The Stoics teach that suffering comes not from external circumstances, but from how we interpret them. When a relationship starts to feel empty, the instinct is to look outward for something or someone to fill the void. But real connection isn't found in a new person. It's cultivated by being fully present, by investing in deep conversations, and by recognizing that passion isn't something you find. It's something you create. The void isn't a sign that something is missing. It's an invitation to show up differently. The psychological pull. Dr. John Gottman, one of the world's leading relationship researchers, says that the true killer of relationships isn't fighting, it's indifference. When a woman no longer feels seen or valued by her partner, she becomes vulnerable to outside attention. Enter the Coolidge Effect, a psychological phenomenon where novelty triggers excitement and desire. Suddenly, a simple compliment from a co-worker, a deep conversation with an old friend, or an inside joke with a stranger feels like a breath of fresh air. And that feeling is addictive. But Stoicism reminds us that fleeting pleasure is not the same as fulfillment. Marcus Aurelius warned against being a slave to your impulses, reminding us that what feels good in the moment can often lead to suffering in the long run. The mind craves novelty, but true wisdom is recognizing that the thrill of something new is not a solution, it's a distraction. If a woman believes that excitement equals connection, she risks chasing a mirage instead of addressing the real void within. Epictetus taught that our greatest power lies in how we respond to our emotions. The desire for attention, for feeling wanted, is natural. But acting on that desire without reflection is where mistakes are made. Instead of searching for validation elsewhere, the Stoic path demands looking inward. What am I neglecting in myself? Have I communicated my needs? Am I mistaking external excitement for internal fulfillment? The answer isn't in another person. It's in rediscovering presence, effort, and depth within the relationship that already exists. Loss of identity in marriage. For many women, marriage slowly erases their sense of self. They become wife or mother, but they stop feeling like a person with dreams, desires, and individuality. Sometimes an affair isn't about betrayal. It's about self-reclamation. It's about feeling like a woman again, not just a role they've been assigned. And that craving for recognition is powerful enough to make them overlook the consequences. But Stoicism teaches that true identity isn't something given, it's something cultivated. Seneca reminds us, as long as you live, keep learning how to live. If a woman feels lost in her marriage, the answer isn't escape, it's self-exploration. The mistake isn't in wanting to feel alive again, it's in believing that another person holds the key to that awakening. The real work is in reclaiming individuality without sacrificing integrity. No one else can give you back what you feel you've lost. That comes from within. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow." Passion, excitement, and self-worth don't come from external validation. They come from reconnecting with who you are, setting boundaries that protect your growth, and realizing that love should expand your identity, not erase it. The "I deserve this" mindset. Once a woman feels neglected and unappreciated for long enough, she starts to rationalize her actions. I give so much, and I get nothing back. He doesn't care, so why should I? This isn't wrong if it makes me happy. What was once a moral boundary becomes a personal entitlement, and that's when the danger escalates. The Stoics warned against letting emotions dictate actions. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." When resentment takes over, it distorts perception. A person starts seeing themselves as a victim, justifying actions they once considered wrong. The real danger isn't the affair itself, it's the mindset that makes betrayal feel justified. The moment someone believes they're owed happiness at any cost, they risk losing sight of their values. Epictetus reminds us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Feeling unappreciated is real, pain is real, but entitlement is a trap. It convinces people that breaking their own integrity is the only way to regain control. True strength comes not from seeking validation elsewhere, but from choosing to uphold character even when circumstances feel unfair. Because in the end, no momentary pleasure is worth the price of self-respect. The breaking point. The hardest part of an affair isn't the final step, it's the first one. Psychologists call this threshold theory, the idea that the biggest resistance is at the start. Once the initial boundary is crossed, a text, a meeting, a touch, it becomes easier and easier to keep going, and before she knows it, she's too deep to turn back. The Stoics understood that the first decision is always the most important. Seneca warned, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." Every small choice either strengthens or weakens character. The moment someone justifies stepping over the line, they begin a path of self-deception where each excuse feels easier than the last. The weight of regret doesn't come from one grand mistake. It comes from a series of ignored warnings. Marcus Aurelius advised, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Integrity isn't about avoiding consequences. It's about living in a way where no excuse is needed. The real battle is not with external temptation, but with the mind's ability to rationalize. And in that moment of hesitation, when the first step feels both thrilling and dangerous, wisdom lies in asking, is this a path I can walk without losing myself? The addiction to attention. Science shows that new emotional connections trigger the same brain pathways as drug addiction. That's why women in affairs feel intoxicated by the experience. The rush of dopamine, the thrill of secrecy, the intensity of being desired. It's a high that's hard to resist. And like any addiction, quitting feels impossible. The Stoics understood this kind of attachment. Epictetus warned, "If you want to be free, do not desire anything that depends on someone else." The moment validation becomes a need rather than a want, control is lost. Affairs feel addictive because they provide an escape, a fantasy world where flaws disappear and every interaction feels exciting. But like any illusion, the high fades, and what's left is often emptiness, regret, or destruction. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If attention from another person becomes a source of self-worth, that craving will never stop. True confidence isn't found in being desired. It's found in mastering desire itself. The antidote to addiction isn't indulgence or restraint. It's clarity. It's recognizing that what feels like love is often just an unexamined hunger, and real strength comes from choosing substance over fleeting highs. The final shift. At some point, the marriage becomes an afterthought. The husband is no longer her emotional home. Someone else is. And when that happens, the affair doesn't feel like cheating anymore. It feels like destiny. She either gets caught, confesses, or leaves. Not because she's cruel, but because the thought of losing that new connection is unbearable. But Stoicism reminds us that emotions are not truth. They are fleeting impressions. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth." The belief that an affair is meant to be is not fate. It's the mind's way of justifying what it doesn't want to lose. The rush of infatuation creates the illusion of something deeper, But the foundation is built on secrecy and escape, not genuine connection. Seneca warned, "No one can be happy who has been thrust outside the truth." When deception feels like destiny, it's time to question what's being sacrificed. The true turning point isn't the confession or the breakup. It's the moment a person realizes they have abandoned their own principles for a feeling that, like all highs, will eventually fade. The real test of love isn't in who excites you most. It's in who you choose to build with when excitement fades. Infidelity isn't about being a bad person. It's about unmet needs, emotional starvation, and a series of small, unchecked choices. Recognizing these signs is crucial. Whether you're in a relationship or not, understanding this pattern can help prevent it. Affairs don't happen overnight. They happen in the moments we ignore, the justifications we allow, and the connections we take for granted. Pay attention before it's too late.